we're going to invite our speaker, Mr. Thomas Dietz from the University of Münster, to present a little bit of the findings from yesterday of the workshops in the soy and the beef sector.
Yes, thank you very much, Tomislav. And indeed, that's the purpose of this session. Is I'm here with my colleague Paulo Mortara Batistic. Say hello to everybody. We are from the University of Münster, and yeah, we have been listening, we have been observing, and we've been trying to summarize the main results, the main insights, and we tried to present this here in the morning. Of course, there was only very short time to bring everything together. I think there will be more, let's say, elaborate pieces of work, written work after some time. But yeah, we try our best to summarize what has been happening here at this beautiful workshop and summit. And yeah, all of you in front of you, you still have the barcodes for our survey, and we are very grateful for many people that have actually answered this survey yesterday, and what, in addition to the main results, presenting the main results of the summit, we also now show you a first preliminary results of the survey. So with this we start and see what's going on here. So we see that we have answers from all countries that are involved. Here only the Germans seem to be a bit lazy, so don't know why. And but we have answers from all countries here. In total, 31 persons here answered the survey, and there's a distribution across the different countries. Then we have asked for the commodity, and we see that we have more people from soya than cattle, but there are also some others involved that answered the survey here. And then we have a differentiation according to the sector. So we have people from the public sector, we have private businesses, civil society, business associations, there's also some from academia. So you have an understanding of the group of people that answered the survey. Okay, the first question was whether the EUDR, the new regulation, what opportunity does it create to increase or to improve sustainable trade with soy and beef and cattle. And we see that here the picture is a bit undifferentiated, so I would interpret it in a way that we all really don't know yet to what this all will lead, whether this will improve sustainability. It's a very undecided picture that we have here. So this reflects much of the uncertainty that is still around with this new regulation, I would say. And then we have the second question is whether smallholder producers will be negatively affected by this new regulation, whether they may be excluded from value chains. And here the picture is, I think, a bit clearer, especially for cattle. We see that most people have an impression at the moment that this might have quite an effect on the smallholders. For soy, we see this also, but it's not that strong. And next question was whether you, the group here, I mean, you all answered this, whether you expect a kind of shifting in the markets away from the European Union to other markets. And here again, the picture is rather undecided. So I would say the people don't know yet what really will happen in terms of market shares or what effects this will have on trading. Unclear. But what is very clear is the question whether the systems that have been introduced here, for example, for Argentina and Brazil, and also for the European Union, whether these systems will be ready when the law actually comes into effect at the end of this year. And this is very clear. So we all here in the room, most of us, we don't really expect that this will all be ready and workable when the law starts to become effective by the end of this year. I think this is a very clear finding here. And we have asked for the reasons. We have given different possibilities. Why isn't it? And then we see it is a variety of reasons. There's not one reason that dominates this view. It's a missing guidance, missing clearness, maybe how to put this regulation into technological systems, how to translate this into information systems. And we have financial issues, we have the problem of technical issues, we have the communication problems, and we all know that the platforms will probably not be ready when they should be ready. So a variety of reasons that needs to be tackled before all this can be, enter into a smooth transition to cover and to address markets as before. Okay, this we skip because it's too long. The next question was whether you expect significant costs in the physical segregation of value chains, and we see here it's probably a bit more problematic for soya than for cattle, because soya may involve the building of a new infrastructure for segregated value chains, and this is the answer here. So especially in the soya sector, you expect, or the people who answered the survey expect, that the costs will rise significantly. And the next question was then, after we asked about the readiness of the traceability systems to prove the deforestation freeness of the traded goods, we ask for the second part of this EUDR legislation is the legality part. And this is another part of the due diligence obligations that needs to be fulfilled. And also here we see that most people think that by end of 2024, these systems to prove the legality are not fully working and are not fully in place, similar to the traceability systems for deforestation. Also here, a variety of reasons, guidances, financial capacities, technical capacities, communication. It is also, it shows that it is complicated on many different levels, and probably will mean a lot of work over the rest of the year to make these things working. And finally, we had a question. We were interested in whether you think that this new regulation has an effect actually on trade, whether some countries may benefit from it while other countries may lose out. But this is, again, it's not clear here. It's a very undifferentiated paper with, again, I interpret it in a way that the real consequences of this law cannot be foreseen or anticipated at this moment. There's a lot of uncertainty of what will happen. Yeah, so again, thanks to all of you. I think this was the last one, yeah? This was the last slide of the survey. Thanks to all of you for this. I think these are quite useful results to start with, to get an overview of how this is perceived, also in producer countries. We will now, let's say, elaborate on these first results with what we have heard here during the workshop, to go into details for some aspects. And there were 4 questions that we had that we had designed in preparation of this workshop. I think my presentation now will follow these questions, but more implicitly, because I think that it makes more sense to follow the logic that came up here in the discussions, and then relate it to the questions that we had. So the first, and maybe one of the most crucial insights, is that there is still a huge gap on clarity on side of the European Union. Yeah? So I think this is one of the major questions that many people, many participants of this workshop, of this summit from the producer countries have, is, so what specific characteristics must the traceability systems that we are all developing, or that these countries here, Argentina, Brazil, also other countries, and also private sector actors are currently developing. So what specific characteristics must these traceability systems fulfill to be accepted by the competent authorities in EU member states as a green lane into the market? I think this is one of the key issues. So what gives us this access to the markets, and what do we really have to do this? And I think to overcome this problem is we need, it is mainly probably a task for the European Union and for the member states. We need to invest in further dialogues and guidances and communication. The European Union has already done a lot. It has set up this Q&R section. It tries to specify its criteria. It starts this communication process. It's not that there is no willingness. It's all there, but we have to make sure that all this will be brought together, and that there is a real communication structure between actors here, stakeholders here in the producing countries, and the regulatory agencies and the European Commission on side of the European Union. I think this is one of the key findings, because it's not a black letter or black text that it's all clear from the regulation of how this operates in practice. It has a bit of an experimental regulatory character, and now things need to be adapted also in practice and for practice. And I think this requires a very strong communication channel between European states and producing countries, between the competent authorities and the Commission, to create this kind of lane through which the trade can flow. And as has also been mentioned yesterday, the first step is maybe now also the task of the European Commission to develop this information system where operators at the European markets can upload their information, because this structures in the way all the rest. If you know what has to be uploaded there, exactly how this procedure works, you can adapt the systems that you are developing here to feed into this system. But I think this is the kind of the master system, and this defines everything, and this has to be ready, and then the systems can be adapted. I think we heard also this from the EU presentation yesterday, that the EU is working on that, but they should really make their homework here, because this system guides everything else in the end. Okay. Then I want to talk about technological gaps. Yeah, this was one of the main issues yesterday. So what are the existing systems capable of? What is still missing? Where do we have to improve? And I think here is a kind of a maybe disparity between what has been discussed at the round tables, at the workshops, and if we compare this to the very sophisticated presentation about the systems that are already in place or have already been developed, I think maybe the technology problems are less fundamental as it sometimes seems. Because many of the problems that are raised all over again, it's my impression from the presentations by Ms. Papendieck, by Niels Sondergaard, by the Brazilian presentation on the Brazilian system, is that there are technological solutions for this in principle. These and they also know how these technological solutions can be developed to solve all of these problems that are mentioned again and again. Data can be encrypted, the movement of cattle can be traced, data platforms can be integrated, and also precise satellite images can be produced. All this can be done technologically. So there are technological answers to most of the problems that are mentioned here. But, of course, and this is the problem, is not so much on the technological side itself, but of course it is a matter of time. We know this. It is not easy, and it's not to be done quickly to develop these systems. There's an issue, and of course it is a matter of resources and capacity. So in principle, I think the problems can be solved, but in practice, it needs a lot of efforts that need to be put into these systems, and that is not always easy. Overall, I think that the legality documentation remains an issue more than the deforestation problem. The technological systems are more advanced to address these deforestation issues with all the satellite images and the geolocation data, but legality is more fuzzy. Yeah? What is that? How can we measure it? How can we integrate it into the system? It's not so clear. It's more fuzzy to capture in technological systems. And I think here it still needs some conceptual work, also in discussions and dialogue with the enforcement agencies of how this should be done in practice. Because, and these are two more general insights, the gaps in clarity of the regulation, what I presented before, so what is really required by the European Union, and the technological gaps are of course intertwined. Because as soon as you exactly know what you can do, you can adapt the technological systems. But to make these technological systems efficient, clarity in the regulation is a prerequisite. And then also more like, what do I make of all these results is, last sentence here, build trust in the traceability systems. And what I mean here is, we all are governed by systems, by laws, and we don't know all of these laws by heart, and we don't know all the government systems and technologies that are behind it. Nobody can know. But we have a general trust sometimes that these systems work, and we can rely on them when we take our daily decisions. And also for businesses. Businesses in the producing countries here, they have to make decisions next year. Is it too much uncertainty to enter the European market? Maybe I look for other partners worldwide. But to have the general confidence in the systems that they work and that they will reliably enable me to trade with the European Union is important. And this is not only a matter of technology, but also a matter of communication, of building trust into these systems, that it works and that we can rely on this to make business in the future. And I think this is also a role that the European Union, in cooperation and partnerships with the countries here, has to tackle, to communicate and to build trust in these systems, and that this will really that they will really provide an opportunity to continue sustainable trade with the EU. Of course, we heard a lot about investment and costs. And I listed some of the main costs that were brought up here. The cost of setting up the traceability systems, of course, they are there. Software development, running the system, having the technological infrastructure, these are costs. Maybe investment costs. Once these costs have been incurred, the systems may produce a lot of positive outcomes. Then there are the daily costs, if you will, for the producers, but also other actors along the value chain. You have to give information, you have to have this information ready. It's just a matter of time to deal with these systems. These are, of course, costs. Then, if I understood correctly from the presentations yesterday, there's also a certification aspect to these new systems. You have verification bodies, you have people who verify, entities who verify the information, and we all know from, if we think about certification, someone has to pay for that. To get a certification, you have to pay the certification bodies. Some aspect seems to be here also in these systems. Who pays for these systems is one question. Then we have the physical segregation costs, of course, we mentioned that, and then costs related to competitiveness, because for some regions, countries, it may just simply be easier to fulfill the requirements or less costly than for others. And the big issue then here is that these costs may become prohibitive for some actors, some groups in the value chain. And of course, it was one of the questions here for this workshop is we mostly address here the issue of smallholders, of people who are not part of the, let's say, the huge multinational value chains, but operate on smallholder levels. And maybe for them, they are the first who cannot bear those costs. And as we also have seen in the survey, this is a significant issue. And there, from the roundtables and the workshops yesterday, there were many suggestions that, or many points that suggested just to ease some requirements of the regulation. For example, to use a territorial approach, which can certify not only plot by plot, but whole regions where deforestation risks or other risks are very limited. And I would say, in general, it should be a task of the European Union also and the enforcement agency to include a kind of learning curve into this regulation, to see what works in practice, where we can ease regulations, where we can make it more efficiency, where we can also reduce the amount of information that has to be given. Because in the end, this regulation has a risk logic behind it. We have to tackle the big risks, and it wants to see where the big risks are, and then to mitigate those risks. And maybe this leaves some room for designing the enforcement and the information requirements in a way that this becomes more effective. And territorial approaches would only be one of these things that might be possible. Okay, then the next thing is, especially with regard to the smallholders, is that and this is an interesting aspect also if we look at how the systems are currently developed. I mean, they are developed as a kind of public goods. In Argentina, they are public-private partnerships. In Brazil, as I understood correctly, it's more a government task. This means if they are produced as a public good, then they can be used freely, maybe. Also, and therefore also serve the interests of smallholders and people who wouldn't be able to create these systems by themselves or operate in value chains where other value chains partners provide those systems. This has been brought up yesterday, so we need to make sure that we have a system that also enables smaller producers to produce and trade at transaction costs that are not prohibitive, and this is certainly a way for this. Yeah. Next things that were brought up were we need really to engage with smallholders, to train smallholders, to raise awareness among smallholders, to make really significant efforts to not lose them in this process. And maybe one last point is what has been suggested, of course, from the producer countries is why not think about also a link to link compliance with positive incentives. You know, so far as it's more like you are, in a way, excluded from exporting to the European Union if you are not fulfilling the requirements of the law. There may be, of course, if you transform your value chains and align it to the requirements of the law, there may be new opportunities, there may be new markets that cannot be served by all participants, but especially by those who are able to fulfill this regulations. This is what we call the first mover advantage. But in the end, producers have a chance to opt out or opt in into these value chains. They cannot be forced to export to the European Union, and we want to have as many producers, of course, in these deforestation-free value chains, because only under this condition it will have an effect. The producers must opt into these systems, because then they are protecting the forests. And for this goal, there might be also and this is addressed to the European Commission, there might also be a way or the need to think about positive incentives in trade agreements, in other agreements, that incentivize people to join those value chains that help us to save the climate and to protect the forests. Okay, this was my 5 pennies to this workshop. I'm grateful for all the information you gave and for joining the survey. And I hope I set a little bit the mood for the further discussions this day. Thank you very much.